Those first 6 months, I remember thinking, what's happening? I'm never going to sleep again. I'm never going to eat a meal again. I'm never going to have a hot cup of tea.
She's been on the front lines of some of the world's most dangerous, intense, and emotionally charged stories. But in 2023, Stacey Dooley entered a whole new world: motherhood.
I hadn't anticipated the anxiety that I would feel. I cried so much, I remember the pillow was wet through.
This is an episode about sacrifice.
Before she came along, I'd be like, 8 months, I'll be all right to go to America. I'll leave her with her dad. The time comes and I'm like, I'm not leaving her.
And the reality of making it work when you're just trying to do your best.
I mean, if anyone were to look at me and think, oh, she's got it together, I haven't. I can't be expected to work like I'm not a mum. Kev and the baby followed me around America whilst I'm filming 20 metres away in a family home.
When your identity is so deeply tied into your work, what happens when you step into another role that is all consuming in a whole different way?
They place her on your chest. Suddenly, this person you've known for about 60 seconds is the centre of your universe. I've like radically evolved. I'm a mum now.
Hi, Stacey.
Oh, do you know, really, I'm not saying this to be polite. I am so delighted to see you. It is such a pleasure.
It's
been a while.
So good to see you.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about motherhood, career, and how you've been doing it all. And I say that in inverted commas because we know the truth is one person does not do everything because we are not clones of ourselves.
Correct.
But you have a little girl, Minnie.
Yeah.
She is 2 years old.
Two. Babe, so she was 2 in January. She's magic, actually. I think this is my favourite period of motherhood, actually.
Okay.
I do. I think it just gets funner and easier and better. Like the best is yet to come. Those first 6 months, I remember what's happening? Yeah. I thought this isn't sustainable.
Okay.
I'm never going to sleep again. I'm never going to eat a meal again. I'm never going to have a hot cup of tea again.
Yeah.
But she's 2 now and you're golden.
So tell me about those first 6 months. And actually, let's take a step just before then. Was you prepared to enter motherhood? Had you had conversations about becoming a mum, becoming a parent, raising children?
No, in short. So Kev and I we laugh now because we were sort of so chill and so sort of nonchalant and so aloof about the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? I know some people sort of really think long and hard about whether or not they want to become parents, whether they'll be good parents, you know, if we've got all our ducks in a row. We were just like, sort of, we want a gang, don't we? Yeah. But I hadn't prepared in any way, shape or form. I was useless. I didn't read one book. I didn't listen to one podcast. Yeah. I didn't go to any antenatal classes. And my neighbour, love her art, she was such a sweetheart. She was a mum. And she was saying, she'd run me books round or whatever. They'd just sit on the radiator in the hallway. Because I thought, I think it'll be fine. Yeah. I totally underestimated the gig. And I think, if I'm totally honest, I probably thought people were just being I thought they were just being a bit dramatic. I thought it just can't be that hard. It is animalistic, I think. I can sort of really relate to that. You know, when people describe it as that, you know, they place her on your chest and suddenly this person you've known for about 60 seconds is the centre of your universe. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? And then we sort of stumbled through the first few days and the first few weeks. I mean, if you could have seen that first night when we brought her home, honest to God, it was just saga after saga. Yeah. My boobs were leaking. She wouldn't stop crying. Kev and I are running around naked because I remember her saying skin on skin. So I was going, take your clothes off. So with the pair of us. I've had a C-section, so I'm sort of, hobbling up the stairs. The car ride back from the hospital, going over the humps.
Oh, yeah, we were driving at like 5 miles.
You're in agony. Yeah. And then you're thinking, shall I open the window? But there's pollution, like the exhaust view, as you all know. So the first few days, the first few weeks, the first few months were chaos. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing. And then you sort of just get to grips with it, don't you? But it's a ride.
And you're probably not sleeping.
No. Oh, no. I didn't sleep.
First year, you just don't sleep.
Babe, Minnie didn't sleep, and this is no exaggeration, no top up. She didn't sleep one night through until she was about 15, 16 months. Yeah. Promise you. Like, For the first year, forget it. And I think it's because she was on the boob for about 14 months. And
was
she
that like
just
full breastfed?
Yeah.
Okay, God, that's
Yeah.
a lot on you as well, because that's a full-time job in itself.
And I had one bigger than the other.
Yeah.
So one was really working and the other weren't up
that
to
happens.
much. She never slept until she got off the boob, and she'd take a bottle, just, a bit of milk at night. And then she started sleeping. She's in our beds. And I hadn't anticipated the anxiety that I would feel surrounding my baby, because my natural default, I'm fairly chill. I'm quite level-headed. I'm quite rational. Like, if something comes up, we can sort of figure it out. With Minnie, if she was poorly, or she had a temperature, or she had bronchiolitis when she was little, and that was giving her hassle, I was this panic that I have never really experienced before, because your job is to make sure she's okay. So I hadn't anticipated any of that, and that's exhausting. Yeah. So I think the first year I was just just trying to get through it all.
I always ask people, like, when your child's sick, who are they calling and who's going to the baby?
It's me.
Yeah.
So, and this has happened a few times. So when Minnie was a few months old, she had bronchiolitis. And of course, I catastrophise. And in my mind, she's the only baby on planet Earth that has ever had bronchiolitis. Even though I've got the doctors and the nurses going, Stacey, this is very common. We actually call it bronchi season. Okay. Lots of babies will struggle with this, and she's on good form, given, she's unwell. I'm like rattling, I'm rattling in the hospital. Oh, my baby. But it would always be, one of us has to go back to work, and that would always be Kev, and I would always be with the baby.
Because you want to, as much as you are like, no, I'm an independent woman, I've got work, and my work's just as important, and we all walk through the world like independent women. There is a part that's also, I want to be the first person that calls when they're sick. And I want to be there, and you want to be everywhere at once. There's kind of this attitude that you're not serious if you do that, even though obviously women are extremely high performers that are also working mums across the board. But did you ever feel any sense of that at all, of like, you feel, or even just internally, it might not even been from the people that you work with making you feel that way, but did you ever feel a bit like, oh, I don't want to, I know you mentioned you don't want to let people down, but
I hate letting people, I do hate letting people down, because I know what goes into planning a day's filming. Do you know what I mean? And I get that, people have maybe, our contributors, for example, maybe they've taken the day off work, or, they've sorted out their own childcare, or, my PDs, my directors, or my producers, they've got families to think about. So I get logistically things have been put in place. But it's weird, I've sort of got this attitude where I'm Minnie's mum, and actually she just always has to, from my point of view, I have to always prioritise her. Minnie's just a priority, and everything else comes after. Yeah,
and I think it's also empowering more parents, mothers, to take a step back when they have to. Yeah. Because if your child's sick,
that's just
then
it.
You have to look after your child.
For such a long time, so much of my identity was wrapped up in what I did for a living, right? It was like, and I placed so much sort of importance on that, And I do sort of take my job, I don't take myself seriously, but I do take my job seriously. But actually everything has to come, everything's secondary now. Like, so if Minnie's unwell, I'm not going to work. That's just how it is. So having to let people down in a professional space, I'd always feel a bit like, oh God, I'm ever so sorry, but I can't make it. But that's just how it goes.
How do you plan your days at the moment?
There's no real structure. So we're still riding that wave. Yeah. So I've either got her or her dad's got her. And if we're both working, my mum will have her.
Okay. So mum is a part of the village.
Yeah. And if my mum's not available, Kev's mum.
Okay.
So she'll either be with me, a dad, or she's got a nan and a grandma.
And were these people that you kind of recruited as of when? And was like...
Babe, as soon as she was born, I was like, we're going to need help. I was like... Okay. So, and we're, again, like, such an obvious drum to bang, but I would find it very, very, very difficult if I didn't have a support
I don't think
network.
people realise that that's an obvious thing, because we've been shown this attitude, we've been shown this woman that kind of does it all, looks glamorous, has her shit together in her career, in every sort of pillar of her life, and there's no help, no family help.
It's not something I'd have been able to achieve. Yeah. In fact, if my mum wasn't on the scene, you know, thank God I've got Kev. If my mum wasn't on the scene and Kev's mum, I don't think I'd be able to work.
But do you have like a team around that kind of help you with house organisation? And
so
what does that look like?
So we've got no one who sort of, we do the house, you know, sort of all of that we do. So me and Kev will have the baby. My mum, she left her job to come and help us. So I suppose I employ my mum. She's our nanny. And I think sometimes it's like people sometimes are, when they say, oh, we don't have any help, I think, well, if you have your mum or if you have a family member, you do have help. And actually, what a privileged position to be in.
There is like a lost generation of the women in their like 50s, 60s, that are grandparents, that are rediscovering parenthood again, that are, you know, unlearning some of the things that they learned when they were parents, and that are the backbone of our society, because they're looking after our children.
And also there's that, I don't know, one of the Scandinavian countries, but they've got this system, and it's such a brilliant, obvious system. If the grandparents are fit and able and they want to look after the grandkids, the government pay the grandparents' salary. It's like, that's such a brilliant structure. But it's like,
makes sense as well.
It's like every win-win for everyone. So we've got me, Kev, my mum, Kev's mum, and the four of us just sort of, we figure it out.
Yeah. Do you have any ways that you manage tasks? Do you have like a calendar, mental notes, processes?
So we've got a kind of family calendar. So Kev and I will put, you know, where we're going to be, for how long. I suppose because the pair of us don't really have a straightforward 9 till 5. Like, we're never in the same place from one week to the next. So we have to be really on it with the calendar. And then I have to say to my Mum, this week we're just wondering if you're available Tuesday afternoon, Thursday morning and Saturday the whole day. And she'll go, I'm getting my nails done on Saturday. And I'll go, can you move it to the following week? And she'll go, let me ask her. So we sort of have that calendar. And if, God forbid, if you don't put it in the calendar, it's like, but you didn't put it in Passag, but you didn't put it in the calendar. Oh, I did tell you. Well, I don't remember you telling me.
Well, I text it.
Yeah. No, look, remember. But we're sort of stumbling through. But I mean, if anyone were to look at me and think, "Oh, she's got it together," I haven't. Yeah. I haven't. Like, there are some days where I just think, fuck it, you know, I haven't sent that email, or I should have got back to them quicker, or, you know, Minnie's football kit's in the wash, or I haven't brushed my teeth, or
haven't brushed their teeth.
I haven't put the bins out. The kitchen needs to clean. Blah la 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 la. Like, that is what life looks like. And so I would hate for anyone to think it is this sort of polished you know, kind of magic space that we've got figured out.
And you roll through it, and then you show up, you have a shower, do your hair, feel a bit better.
But you'll have one day where it feels, you know, it feels easy, but it feels like, oh, sort of fine. And then the next day is like, rock and roll.
It's that ride that you go on.
Rock and roll.
Whether it's them wanting to wake up, not wanting to, but sometimes happen to just be waking up multiple times in the night, and you're just like, okay, are we going through a regression? Or, you know, some people call it a progression, but like, are we going back? No.
It's the sleep. For me, the sleep deprivation was without question the hardest part. Yeah. I was so tired. I was so tired. I feel daft saying this to you because you've got two, but I was so knackered for so long. The first year I was so tired.
Always.
So tired, so very tired. And I thought, it can't be that hard. Like, I've done all night, we've all done all-nighters, we've all worked 14-hour shifts. Like, it's going to be so fine. Like, 2 a.m, I'll just watch something on Netflix. I was so tired. That for me was the hardest part.
The thing is also, I think, and not to be like putting off anyone that wants kids, but the sleep deprivation part, I think, is the hardest part because it's so long and it goes on for months. And it's not like you have a bit of like a week, you know, before when you've probably had this when you're just working maybe like 2 weeks, like back to back with like minimal hours sleep. But then at least you can have a Sunday to just rot on the sofa.
Yes.
But you don't get that
unless
you bring people in.
Yeah.
How do you kind of know when you're kind of getting to breaking point?
Yeah.
Or you know, I feel like we've all kind of been there at some point multiple times in the first year at least. And how do you recognize it and then be like, I need to do something for me right now?
Yeah. I remember vividly, actually, one time I'd got this pump because she was feeding every 2 to 3 hours. So I thought, let me just express some of this, and then I can maybe sleep for 4 hours or 5 hours, and that'll feel like a good chunk. So wrestling with this pump, obviously it wasn't working. So I'm sort of teary-eyed trying to get the pump to work, get it to work, right? Get some out, delighted, thrilled. I think, right, I can go upstairs. Kev can put this in a bottle. I'm laughing. So love is like, he gets the bottle out.
Oh, I know it.
He gets the bottle out. And so I've been fisticuffs fighting with this pump. We got there. I said, I'll just, put it in the bottle and then screw the lid on and off you go. He hadn't put the bottom bit, you have to take all the bottles apart to put them in that sterilising thing. He hadn't put the bottom bit on. So he pours the express milk in this bottle with no bottom on it, and it just spills all over the kitchen sides. And I'm like this. I think, and then I'm thinking it's not his fault. He didn't do it on purpose. It's not his fault. He didn't do it on purpose. I thought, I'm just going to go upstairs for a minute. I went upstairs, I cried and cried. I cried so much, I remember the pillow was wet through. And I thought, because I was so like that, and I thought, don't be like this, he's not done it. It's not out of spite or malice, it's a genuine accident, but you're so knackered. You think, that could have hooked me up. Some moments like that, I remember just going off for 20 minutes and just crying. Yeah. Just thinking, and it's funny, like now, I would love to have another child, but I think you have to remind yourself that those first few months are a shift. They're a shift.
I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about career. You have had this exceptional career, one of which is so extraordinary, like going from really kind of dangerous places and being in quite like covering these documentaries, putting yourself on the front line, going to very emotionally intensive settings. How has that now changed and your approach to work changed now that you're a mother?
For the first year of her life, she came to work with me.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't take a maternity leave per
No,
se. You
just brought her.
Was that something that you had discussed as well? Like, will my work be able to accommodate this?
I was a bit non-negotiable about it. I think I sort of said to work, I really want to work. I'm really grateful for the work, but the baby coming is non-negotiable. Okay. Even, I do a series called Sleeps Over, where the very premise of the series is I spend, I stay over. It's a really immersive experience. And I booked that in the diary before I'd had Minnie. So, sort of 8 months in advance or whatever. And before she came along, I'd be like, 8 months, I'll be all right to go to America. I'll leave her with her dad. The time comes and I'm not leaving her. No. I'm not getting on a plane. There's not a world where I can leave her. And she was still on the boob. So, I had to hire a trailer, and Kev and the baby followed me around America. Okay. They were living in the trailer whilst I'm filming, 20 metres away in a family home. Yeah. Back and forth, feeding,
So you were able to bring Kev with you?
I just brought them with me.
And thankfully his schedule was free.
Yeah.
It was that like chance, or was that something that you were like, can you help at this point?
That was when we had to be a bit more grown up about things. Start planning.
You're just like, okay, teamwork now. We actually have to think about how we're going to do this.
Yeah. So that's, I really want to do this. Where are you? Yeah. I'll take that time off, and vice versa. He tours a lot. So he went to work 2 weeks after the baby was born because he was doing Strictly Ballroom, a gig that he'd wanted to do for a really long time. That was a 10-month tour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember sort of, fine, yeah. I remember shutting the door and thinking, you know, it was, yeah.
So for the first 10 months, you parented pretty much solo.
So he would come home every Sunday. So we would do his show on Saturday night, Love Is Art. He might have been in Aberdeen and he'd driven. So we'd finish the show at 10:30. He'd be in the car for 6 hours. He'd get home at 4:30 in the morning so we could have the Sunday. I know, he is a trooper actually. And if he was somewhere and I had a week off, we'd go and stay with him for the week.
You forget that now you have to take responsibility for, and you have to kind of plan more than you ever had in your life when you were just maybe two people in a relationship that had that freedom.
You're so right.
Was it hard conversations to have? Like, and how do you approach those conversations as like, okay, I need you to really support me in this part, and likewise for him to ask that of you?
You're so on the money. It's like, I've never been particularly organised, and actually that's so much of what, in my experience, motherhood, parenthood is about. Like just really trying to be on top of your game and trying to, like, logistically, who's where and what do we want to do, and, you know, where's Minnie going, who's having Minnie. And Kev and I have always been like, he's very thoughtful actually. So he would say, you know, if you want to do this, let me try and figure it out with work. And then if he wanted to do something, I'd say, well, sort of let me see if I can film this in a couple of weeks' time.
One of the things that I've personally experienced as well, being, you know, in my 20s, so attached to my career, it was a huge part of my identity that it actually took a lot to unpack and unpick myself from it. Did you ever experience that when you became a mum at all?
Yes. I mean, you were a huge model. You lived in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, you were like a big deal, and continue to be. But it's I know exactly what you mean. I echo a lot of that, and I've been a bit public facing since I was 20, and I'm 38. So people knew me as, you know, the girl who makes documentaries, or, you know, did Strictly or whatever. It's a long time. Yeah. So I've sort of grown up, I suppose. So work was so important to me, and you're so desperate to do a good job and, you know, keep up with everyone, and you're on this treadmill, and also you've got to stay relevant, because you need the commissions, and you need to work, and you need to be on telly, and you need to be on radio, When you have a baby, you know, for me, so much of that was sort of pushed to the side, and actually I really wanted to prioritise just trying to be a good mum. And I so recognise that that's a privilege in itself, because not everybody can afford to say, oh, I'm going to take, you know.
And was that something that you kind of planned to do? Or was that you kind of were forced to?
Yeah.
And it worked out and you were happy about that, right? The shift in priorities. But was it a surprise to you?
Yes, it was a surprise. Because I think if you'd have said to me when I was pregnant, I'd have said, you know, I'm still gonna be the same person, you know, I'm still gonna be working the way I am. But actually, realistically, you just can't. And actually, for me, a lot of my work requires spontaneity. You know, if you're making a documentary, you're following actuality. Actuality is unfolding all the time. So you can put things in place and you can make educated guesses in terms of what you might be filming. But actually, you're waiting for the phone to ring at 2 a.m. We've had an arrest, or there's been a raid, or so-and-so has had a change of circumstances. Can you be here? We're in Doncaster. Can you get the train, the 7:04?
And it's reactive.
Yeah, it's so reactive. Yeah. Before a minute, I'll be there. Yeah, no hassle. Yeah. You know, when you're a mum, it's like, no, I need 2 weeks' notice before I can do anything. I need 2 weeks' notice before I have something to eat.
Oh, literally. Oh my God, literally. And then even if with the 2 weeks' notice, things change.
Yeah, they'll throw up the night before, so I won't be coming.
And I'll be sick.
Yes,
I've caught their bug.
Correct.
So,
yeah, it's fun in it, that game. But so things are very different.
Part of you that, you know, maybe you kind of can't relate to this, but there has been times where I have mourned my old life, and that's really dramatic.
No,
but you do. I kind of am like, wow, that was such a wild ride. I really loved that. Yeah, because it's fully embraced it.
Because it was freedom. And, you know, it's like you can do, when it's just you, or just you and Tyus, or just me and Kev, you can do what you like. Yeah. You know, Kev and I used to be like, when I think about it, it's actually hilarious. On the Wednesday, if he found out he had the weekend off and I didn't have anything booked, we'd be like, should we go to New York? Yeah. Be like, yeah, let's go to New York. Yeah. Oh, let's go and stay in this like really overpriced, really fancy hotel. Yeah. Like, you know, do you want to go and stay in, should we go and have a couple of days in town? Yeah. Do you want to go
Should we have a
to the
lie-in?
north of Sweden? Yeah. Should we have a lie-in? Yeah. Should we just have loads of sex? Yeah. Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like,
Whatever you
everything was
want.
just so chill.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, obviously you just can't do that
It's
because
routine
the routine is so important. And I've never had a life
Yeah.
as
I
you.
can relate to
Yeah.
this so
You know, we
much.
had never, routine was never at the forefront of my minds. Why would it be?
And if you do have a routine, well then, you know, and you have lived a life with routine, maybe it might make
Yeah.
things somewhat easier. Obviously, it's still a massive shock, but
Yeah.
going from that is an extreme of like never having routine.
Yeah.
Well, you know, being reactive,
Uh-huh.
self-guiding, kind of setting your own goals, hitting them when you want. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it is. It's
different.
an entirely different existence, and I'm not the same woman I was, and that might even sound a bit over the top or a
No.
bit dramatic, but it's like I'm just not. Like, I have evolved so in such a kind of like radically. I've like radically evolved. Yeah, I'm a mum now. Yeah, which I love, and I always say to Kev, and I say to myself sometimes, I can't be expected to work like I'm not a mum. It's not conducive. It's not realistic.
I like that saying. They say like you're expected to work like you're not a mum, and expected to be a mum like you don't have a career.
Yeah, it's wild. And, you know, sometimes, of course, there will be a bit of rub and, you know, people would like you to do things, but it's just having the confidence to go, these are non-negotiables for me, and actually this is what's happening. Yeah. Although, you know, ask me in a year and I might be going, oh, God, I need some work.
I'm back.
No one's asked, Stacey, you've been replaced.
It's a process. Being a parent, I think, comes with a lot of self-sacrifice.
Yes.
What have been some of your sacrifices you've had to make?
Professionally, I think there have definitely been sacrifices. I think a lot of my work a few years ago, I would go to, you know, really incredible, insightful, exciting, sometimes hostile environments. And I loved, you know, I thrived. I loved meeting people, living totally different lives to me. I'm not in that space at the moment, because if anything, God forbid anything happens, it's like, I can't afford for anything to happen to me now. Do you know what I mean? So actually my professional choices are a lot more, you know, I do a lot of domestic stuff at home, and it means that I can, you know, have Minnie with me all the time. My mum will follow me around with the baby. So there's lots of gigs that I would have loved to have done that I can't do at the minute. Spontaneity is not easy. You know, you can't just get the call and go, oh, you know, we've just had a phone call from the police, like they've just made an arrest, can you come and film? No, I can't, because I'm with the baby, you know, I haven't got anyone to watch the baby. Some of the gigs are just too difficult or a bit too dangerous. Travel, you have to be a bit more realistic about that. Like when she was a baby, she was much more transportable. You know, she would just, you know, she wasn't running around and into everything, so I could take her to most places. She's 2 now, she couldn't sit still for 5 seconds.
Has it affected, like, your goals now in any way? What you want from your work? I
feel like, I mean, I've always been really lucky that, I started when I was 20. So I started making documentaries when I was 20. I'm 38. So I've had 18 years. So I've had 2 decades of, you know, a really brilliant career. So I've been so lucky. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've travelled the world extensively. I've met brilliant people. I've had fascinating conversations. So I always say, this might sound a bit morbid, but I always say, because, you know, if I died tomorrow, what an incredible ride I had. So professionally, there's still, you know, there's still an appetite there for sure, but it's not at the forefront of my mind the way that it was before becoming a mum, which it really surprises me to hear me talk like this, because I really didn't think that I would take to motherhood the way that I have.
Do you have any approaches to, like, how long you think this sustained period is going to last for you? Do you think this is just, like, now the new dynamic of life?
I think it might be, you know. Like, and I sort of don't want to sound like I'm, you know, I love work, and I love being with my colleagues. And I've met some of the most brilliant people through work, actually. Some of my dearest pals I've met through work. You know, we've had these experiences. I hate the J word, but we've like had these journeys together, and you know, I'll sort of never forget like traveling the world with these people, you know. But for now, I just think, you know, if it works, brilliant. If it doesn't, then, you know, maybe we come back to it in a few years' time.
I think that's good to know that, and it's reassuring to hear that from someone like you, especially, that you're not always having to be in this like uphill trajectory, and it's okay to take that pressure off.
I think it is. And also, you know, work's not going anywhere. It's like, you know, they're always going to need telly, or I suppose as well I'm quite lucky because I'm sort of trying my hand at different things at the minute, like the documentaries are something that I'm so sort of proud of, and I suppose primarily that's what I'm maybe most known for, but I'm doing other bits and bobs as well, which is really fun, you know, like I just did a bit of acting, and you know, that was, so I really loved it actually. And even that, you know, that was like, it was like 12 weeks in the West End, and we live up north now. That felt really exciting and new territory to explore, but I had to make sure that it was feasible. I had to make sure it was possible. So I had to ring my mum, you know, what are your movements? Kev, what are you doing over the summer? Can we relocate to, you know, central London for 3-4 months, including rehearsals? Brought Minnie down. But yeah, it was wicked. I really loved it.
You got to go and see it, 222. But it was on during, you know, the golden time of bath time.
Yeah.
I don't know about you,
yes.
but I'm now like, oh, bloody hell. Like, who knew that the hours of 6 to 7 was going to be the time that I can now have to be home by? And no one else can talk to me. But
you're
it
so
sounds like a silly
right.
question, but what was that like for you not being? Was that important? I don't know.
It's not a daft question. It's you're totally on the money. So the way I could justify it was I could hang out with Minnie, you know, all day. So I'd get up, do breakfast, take her to there was a park round the corner. Even that, like even when you're talking to the lads about accommodation, you know, where they're going to put you up, has to be near a park.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise she's going to, you know, be climbing the walls. So I'd wake up, do her breakfast, we'd go to the park, we'd do the swings for an hour, and then there was a Waterstones, so it was like a bookshop on the corner. I'd take her to go and have a book, do her nap. So I did most of the day with her, which was lovely, you know, I'd have the whole day, but then it's also nice that you can have a couple of hours and go to work. Like work is so like, it's like having a day off going to work. It's like, oh, I'm going to work. And then I would do the evening, so I'd have to be there at 6. Finish the show about 10, and then I'd walk back. It took me about 15 minutes, but I'd miss bath time. I missed bath time for 12 weeks. Yeah. And either her dad did it, her grandma, or my mum, her nan. And she wasn't asked, do you know what I mean? She's not fussed.
These kids don't know any
different.
And there's so many people that work shift jobs and work at different times of the day and stuff. So,
but of course you've got that sort of nagging, you know, I haven't done bath time for weeks. But she's not fussed. I think she actually prefers my mum to me. She's so in love with her nan. So, and she's as good as gold for everyone else. She sort of plays up for me a bit. Yeah. So I'd come back and I'd go, how was she? And I'd go, fine. Yeah,
you're her safe space.
Oh, that's what Kev says. When she's been chaos all day, I say, Kev, I'm telling you, we've had a day of it. He goes, it's because she loves you the most. Yeah. I go, is it?
Okay, now it's your turn. Hand over time. Dear Minnie.
Yeah.
You recently wrote your 3rd book. Yeah. And it focuses on the experiences of motherhood. Yeah. And your experiences. What inspired you to write this book?
So we were flirting with the idea of a 3rd book, and the obvious sort of no-brainer in terms of subjects was motherhood. And I said, initially I was a bit sort of lukewarm. I said, it's such an oversaturated space. And what I didn't want to do was go, guys, this is how you do it. I've figured it out. Ta-da! Yeah. So, and I didn't want it to just be about my experience, because I was so mindful that, you know, it's all been relatively straightforward for me, and that's so not the case for so many women. So I said, is there a Wales where we can sort of hang out with loads of different mums and hear from them directly? They get to sort of control their own narrative. And then I thought, well, why don't they write their child a letter? So actually it's a lovely little book. It's like all these amazing mums have wrote their kids a letter.
Did you, when reading those letters, see that there was like a theme or any common things that were coming up at all?
I think the obvious common threads was we're all just sort of trying to figure it out and do our best. Ultimately, that's what we're all trying to do. And we'll be up against different things, and things will play out in different ways. But what I hadn't anticipated, obviously, you know, I love Minnie more than I love anyone. But what becoming a mum, I sort of hadn't realised this would happen. I sort of look at everyone in a gentler way. And I, sort of sounds a bit like woo-woo, but not like I love everyone, but I see people through a different lens now, because everyone is someone's Minnie. And when I was reading these letters, I was like, all of these mums are really special, and all of these kids are their Minnies, and I'm just a lot more sentimental now. I'm a lot gushier.
Yeah. Do you have any advice that woman that is ambitious, that wants to pursue her dreams and also show up as a good mum?
I would say when you find the answer, share it with me. Because we're all just trying to do our best. We're all just trying to show up. And I want to be like I really want to be good at my job, and I really want to be a brilliant mum, and I also want to be a good pal, and I want to make sure that me and Kev, our relationship's prioritised. But it's like, we're only one person. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you'll smash it at work, but then you won't have done bath time. Or you'll be at home, you'll have a brilliant day with the baby, but then you haven't sent the emails and things have fallen a bit behind. So I would just say, sort of, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't give yourself a hard time. Plenty of people do that for you. Society will do that for you. But it's like, try and be present, because everyone tells me, Stacey, you'll blink and she'll be 10. And she's only 2 once. So just don't give yourself a hard time. And actually, if you get it wrong, it's totally fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, as long as, it's always about intent, isn't it? But I think, because it's funny, like when you meet other mums, when you become a mum and then you meet other mums, you sort of have this, it's like this unspoken, there's this sense of camaraderie. It's like a sisterhood that I hadn't experienced prior, but it's like you just get it. You get it. It's like even strangers, like if she's pushing her buggy on the other side of the street, you sort of look at each other and it's like, it's like, I know. It's like, there's this sort of unspoken, sense that we're all part of this gang, this crazy gang. And also just take the help. I know this, like everyone says this, but it's like, if someone says, do you want an hour, just take the hour. You don't have to be a martyr. You really don't. And also, you can't, people have ambitions and they want to do, lots of other things aside from motherhood. You can't do it if you're all over the shop, because you're so exhausted.
I'm going to move on to a quick fire round, if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
If you weren't in the current line of business that you're in, what would you be doing? I
would either run a luxe florist, which I would love, or I would be into real estate.
Ooh.
Yeah. I always think, if I get dropped and I'm no longer like getting the commissions, what would I do? And they're my 2 backups.
Oh, and you know what? You can't go wrong with a good luxury bunch of flowers.
Am
they just
I right?
Make you feel so good.
Yeah. I think I'd be good with that.
Especially for me, all the neutrals. I'm
yeah.
Tyson knows. But I can imagine yours being like beautiful, like reds and
I got
oranges.
You.
And,
I could get like a beautiful centerpiece
just
here.
Pop for me. Because it needs a little bit, to be
Your
fair.
house is
it
lovely.
Needs a little bit of,
it's really beautiful.
Joy and colour. What are your 3 motherhood must-haves? And they can be objects, skills, mindsets, anything that's specifically for a thriving mum.
My mum.
Yeah.
The pouches that have got like apples, bananas, blah, blah, blah. So if she goes, I'm hungry, I've got a pouch.
Or having a meltdown.
Or she's having a meltdown on the train. Yeah, that's always really fun. And I've actually got a diary. I've got that diary. I'm so old school. If I write it down, I won't forget it. So my file of facts, even though it's not the 90s, one of those pouches in case it all goes tits up, and my mother in the wings.
Oh, brilliant. If you could swap roles with any other working mum, dead or alive, who would that be?
Do you know who I really kind of admire from a distance? I've met her a few times, but I'm a fan. I am a fan of her. Rochelle Humes, I think, is such a sweetheart. When I've met her, what did we do together? We've done a couple of things together. I think she interviewed me for This Morning. Anyway, we've sort of crossed paths, and she's always been such a delight, and she's always immaculate, and her kids are beautiful, and she's very entrepreneurial, and she's very sort of, she seems to have done business her way, and I watch her from a distance, and I think she's pretty knockout. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also I heard Andy Oliver talk about raising Makita. I think they do that podcast together, and she speaks about, you know, it was just to give, you know, of course she had to work, like who's paying the bills if she wasn't going to work. And so actually there's lots of mums in the public eye who I think, yeah, they're really cool.
And when your daughter looks back on your life and career, what do you hope she'll say?
Cool. Well, she'll be mortified, of course, because I'll be so desperately uncool to her. She's so over me already. I sometimes say to her, baby, can I hold your hand if we're sitting in the back of the car together? And she goes, no. The kind of noble answer is she was sort of unapologetically herself, and that's kind of cool. This sounds really like, ugh, but she sort of tried to lead and sort of do things, you know, kind of break into a space that wasn't necessarily for her, but I just want her to talk to me, actually, because actually I'm told that once they sort of reach their formative years, they're so over you, they just don't even want to be in the same room as you, and I never want to get there. Can you imagine?
I know.
Can you imagine when we're not their favourite people?
I'm forcing them. Come here. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, no,
that was amazing.
No,
that
thank you.
So
I've had a lovely
good.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, wicked. Thanks for listening to CEO Mum. If this conversation resonated, please like and follow the show and share it with a mother who's also carving out her path. I'll see you in the next episode. Until next time. What would you be thinking about differently if you was to do it again?
I think I would try, easier said than done, to be a bit more relaxed about things. You know, I wouldn't panic as much, hopefully, if she has a temperature after her jabs, or, you know, if she's a bit chesty, or I would try and be a bit more relaxed about things generally.
Okay.
I would try and sleep more. So I would try and sleep in the day, and then maybe I'd be a bit more equipped for the evenings, because it's that window from sort of midnight till 4 or 5 o'clock where you just feel like you're the only person on earth that's still up. Yeah. So I would maybe sort of try and lean into what I've learned, but who knows?
Would you then be taking some time off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
You would. Because
I think the reason I went back was because there was a sense of urgency, understandably so. But yeah, I think I'd take more time off. Yeah.
People often say, like, I think next time round I'd give myself a bit more grace.
Yeah.
In terms of the expectations I have of myself to do it all really well. Yeah.
And I think people are hesitant to say this because it sounds sort of so big time, but I do think I am a good mum. And it's one of the things I'm sort of most proud of is I've tried really hard, but inevitably, you know, things go tits up or I sort of misjudge a situation. So I would just try and be a bit more chill.
Yeah.